Hello, 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 everyone. My name is Nicole White. I'm so excited. I'm back with Heather. If you didn't see the previous video that we did together, I would highly recommend it. And I personally, I've known Heather for a long time, and I personally got so much out of it. And I just want to say, Heather, that I was literally staying up till 1, 2, sometimes 3 in the morning. And after
Sure.
that interview, I have been getting up at 6:30. 6:30, and it's been really great. It is way too cold to and slippery and icy to get out there and walk. So I'm going in the backyard and actually doing kind of like some qigong, just some shaking.
Yes.
And folks, I'm a weirdo and don't think badly of me, but there's also this tree, and I'll get up and I will hug this tree
Yes.
and stand in front of her and watch, because there's a huge mountain kind of off in the distance. So I don't actually see the sun, but I see all the different colors coming up, and then how the sun starts to shape the clouds, and all of a sudden the clouds come out. And I'm not sure which star is still out in the morning, but I see it rising, or it's moving. To me, it looks like it's moving up. But it's been so great. I was so inspired by our last chat. So, folks, if you haven't seen that one, I'll link it below. It was awesome.
I'm so glad to hear that. I'm so glad. Just keep it up. I know it could be winter and you'll be like, forget this. It's freezing. You could go through phases, but keep doing it because one, you'll feel better and better. And then when summer comes, you'll feel like, oh my God, I feel amazing, like a new person. So
Yeah.
I'm like, way to go. Like I can say this stuff, but then the people have to do it and you're doing it. So
Yeah.
it's all you. That's awesome. Keep it
Right.
up.
And I'm not doing it perfectly, but it's leading up to that. And I love mornings. I mean, I'm aging myself here, but over 20 years ago, more, I lived in Seattle, and I would have to get up at 4:30 to go work for a coffee company, and
Uh-huh.
go into downtown. So I'd have to get up before the sun came up, but it was
Okay.
always so gorgeous to walk to on my way to work, watch the sunrise, quiet. It's such a beautiful
Yes.
thing. So I'm so glad that came back, and that your video, the interview we did together, inspired that, because it is a beautiful, magical time of day too, watching the
Yeah.
sunrise in one way, shape, or form. Again, I'm
Yeah.
at 7,000 feet, and then I'm
Yeah.
kind of and there's all these houses kind of above me and stuff like that. So I look in the yard, but it's like the colors are coming through the trees, and I think it
Yes.
is making a difference. As well as
Cool.
by 10 o'clock, I'm like, wow, I've gotten a few things done, instead of like, oh, it's time to wake up.
Yeah. Yes. That's awesome. And this is something that my partner Jen and I always like laugh about, but we're out there and we're doing our sunlight RX, especially in the summer months, because it makes this drastic shift from the red and blue to the UV light, which is less drastic right now because the UV light is so weak in our area. It's not even present in most areas in the States. So we're totally sunlight RX nerds now because we'll be out there doing it in the summer months. And in Arizona, literally the sun can rise at like 5:15 in the summer. And so we're out there because we're awake. Our circadian biology kind of aligns with what time the sun is rising. We've trained ourselves over the past few years or so. And so we'll be out there, we'll be doing it. And you're like, you got the like bedhead, you're just like waking up. And then all of a sudden you'll get this like zzz, and it's like, okay, it just shifted into the UV light, and you get this like this cortisol punch because cortisol starts to get released, and we're like, did you get your hit yet? Did you get the cortisol hit? And we're like, yeah, okay, let's go eat breakfast.
Nice.
So yeah, it's pretty it's pretty fun to start seeing those things in your body when you get into the practice, for sure. So I'm stoked to hear how it continues to go for you.
Yeah. And I know we're here to focus on homeopathy, but let's take just
Yay.
a few minutes as a lead
Yeah.
in. And for maybe people who haven't heard of this or don't know much about it, what's kind of a brief explanation for circadian rhythm?
Oh, okay. That's a good question. So, circadian rhythm, it's like nature has its own rhythm, animals have their own rhythm. Some are nocturnal and they're up at night, some are diurnal like humans and we're up during the day and during the light time. So everything kind of has its own rhythm or circadian rhythm. And how I like to refer to it in really simple ways for humans is it's basically your body's own physiological time clock. So it's the way your body tells time. And so if your body's telling time accurately, certain hormones and signals and metabolic signals are going to fire at the appropriate time throughout the day. If you're in a state of what is known as circadian mismatch, it's that your own physiological time clock is out of sync with nature's time clock. So when humans can get in sync with nature's time clock, which is basically just sunlight and then darkness, our own time clock works very well. So that's a really succinct description of circadian rhythms and circadian biology. Just think of it as your physiological time clock.
Mhm. I love it. And again, I can ask
Yeah.
questions forever, but our focus today is homeopathy. So I just may need to tempt you in for yet another video at another time to go deeper into that.
Anytime. These are good questions because I think um I think they kind of go back to like the ancestral primordial just ways that we've, oh, our time clock, nature's time clock, like that's so like unromantic. It's so like not scientific, but it's just like how life is. It's just how we've been, put on this planet with the sun and with the moon and the night.
Yeah.
And so we get really confused with all this other like fancy stuff going on, like, supplements and these sort of treatments and detoxes, which all can have a place, but when we lose track of the basics, then that stuff doesn't really work as well, when we
Right.
disentangle from the basics. Yeah. So
Right.
I think that's awesome. It's an awesome question. And it's always great to just go back and just get these little reminders. When I first started, I was like, duh, Heather, like, okay, like obviously it's just something I didn't think about for a long time either. And
Yeah.
so I think it's really helpful. It's a great question.
Yeah. And we are so far from, unless we go camping or something like that or spend a good amount of time in nature, we are so far away from what life used to be before the light bulb.
Yeah.
And how our ancestors and their ancestors and their ancestors used to live, which
Yeah.
for the most part had to be in harmony with nature. There wasn't alarm clocks, you know, people slept at night, stayed up,
Yes.
rise with the sun, do the work to
Yeah.
the sunlight. And then when the sunlight
Yeah.
is gone, retreat.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
homeopathy, tell us what it is.
Oh, okay. Talk about ancient medicine. This goes back. Hippocrates talked about it. I mean, it goes back years and years and years and years and years. It's a really interesting story about homeopathy. But basically, in simple terms, for if you're unsure what homeopathy is, it's basically, I'm trying to think of the simplest thing people would know. The most common remedy people take is arnica. And so in homeopathy, there are literally thousands of different what we consider and call remedies. So arnica is a very common remedy. It comes in pellets. You can get it in liquid form. There's several different forms you can get it in. They're even selling like creams now. But most people have heard of arnica because when they get a bruise or they fall or they get some kind of injury where there's bruising type of bleeding, they take arnica to relieve the pain, to relieve the bruising. And it's really effectively, that's one thing that remedy targets. It targets so many things, but that's one thing that it mainly targets. So there's literally thousands of different homeopathic remedies that target not only the physical symptoms, but also the mental, emotional symptoms that somebody will exude when they're in a pathology state. So homeopathy is different than Western medicine, because Western medicine will take the opposite substance to treat somebody. So, for example, if there's inflammation in the body, we give an anti-inflammatory in, allopathic medicine. In homeopathy, we use the law of similars, which is like cures like. So, if somebody has symptoms of, let's say, fever, chills, headache, their head is hot, but they have cold extremities, etc., we will give a remedy that actually causes and brings out those symptoms in a healthy person. So we use a substance that actually causes the symptoms that somebody's experiencing, whether it's physical or even emotional, anxiety, claustrophobia, agoraphobia, fear of leaving the house. We'll give a remedy that causes those things in order to get towards what homeopathy calls their cure, or the person's cure. So that's a general basis of what homeopathy is. So it differs from Western medicine in several ways, but that's one big way, is that it'll use a similar remedy versus an opposite remedy. If there's constipation, we give laxatives in Western medicine. It's the opposite approach in homeopathy. And there's been scholars for years and years, from Samuel Hahnemann, who kind of really brought homeopathy into the mainstream, to Hippocrates. These people have been using the law of similars with amazing results for literally hundreds and hundreds of years.
Okay.
So that's a basis of it. So it started when Hahnemann was just developing the law of similars and bringing it into more of the mainstream. It eventually got to America. There were some people who brought it to America, who started practices in New York City, and I think it mostly started, at least for what we know now, in the northeastern states. But there were literally universities, Boston University, Drexel, Philadelphia universities, that actually had homeopathic medical doctor training as part of their training for years and years and years, until the early 1900s, when that shifted for many reasons.
That's a whole nother topic. I know.
Yeah.
It's a tricky topic because of what's
Yeah.
going on in the world right now. So
Yeah.
with that, let's just segue shortly and then come back to it, to where you might think homeopathy, for a variety of different reasons, isn't as well known now as it used to be, as well as what I know about pharmaceuticals. And again, I know that they save, when you have a catastrophe, the pharmaceuticals can absolutely save your life. I believe on a day-to-day basis, we need to do what is more aligned with nature. If you have a little ache, a little pain, I try to encourage people to go, well, why is that there? And what can I
Hmm.
take naturally instead of just reaching for aspirin or over the counters?
Yeah.
And I know we won't get into it deeply, but for those who might be questioning, like, oh, okay, well, why isn't there more homeopathy?
Yeah.
The truth is there isn't as much money in it. And
Oh,
they
that's
have,
the bottom. That's
yeah,
totally the bottom line.
yeah. Yeah. So a medication is has to be taken out of nature, right? And correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, because you can't patent anything from nature. You can't take nettle leaves, package it and
Right.
patent it and sell it for a lot of money. But
Yeah.
they can do whatever scientific experiments, take something that works like nettle, make it a synthetic and then
Mhm.
sell it for whatever they want, a pain reliever, an allergy reliever, whatever.
Yeah.
So, without getting us into any kind of trouble here, anything more you want to add to that point and why maybe we've been swayed more into taking pharmaceuticals instead of looking at more natural remedies more often?
Yeah, there's a few key reasons as to why, which you totally nailed. And one is that as as individuals attended the homeopathic schools in the early 1900s in the States, and they were getting great results, the allopathic doctors, which actually both the trainings used to be, you had to learn both. You couldn't just learn allopathy. You had to learn allopathic and homeopathic. There was this synergistic harmony in the medical schools, up until the early 1900s. But then the Carnegie Foundation got involved and basically spent a boatload of money, created this thing called the Flexner Report, which basically um, said, there's a lot of things it said, but the conclusion it came to was that we need to start treating diseases versus people, because it's going to make us a lot more money if we just focus on the disease versus the person. And Hippocrates said this really, really cool thing, which it was, um, we need to start treating uh, the sort of person that has the disease versus treating the disease the sort of person has. So this whole thing came in where we stopped treating the sort of person that has a disease and we started treating the sort of disease the person has. And that way we could put everybody in the box. They get this, treatment, they get the antibiotic, they get the prescription. Everybody who has joint pain gets this protocol, and it's going to make us a lot more money and we can see a lot more patients in a day. And on and on it went. Homeopathy was basically buried because of of these reasons. And the homeopaths were really they were a threat to those just practicing allopathic medicine financially. So that, in their eyes anyway, at that time. So those are some reasons why homeopathy's been buried. And so when something gets buried like that, we're also, bad things are said about it. They're using poisons to treat people, because we have remedies like arsenicum, sulfur. There's there's remedies that are quote unquote poisons, but you think they don't act like that in the body because they're diluted to such minute doses that they can bring about cure, versus Western drugs, they're not diluted. These are major, major, major doses of big poisons. And they cause a lot of issues. The biggest difference between homeopathy, or one big difference between homeopathy and Western medicine, is that homeopathy actually brings the disease out, whereas allopathic drugs suppress every single one of them, in 99% of the cases, press the disease down. So I just did actually a podcast on this because it's a timely time in our world right now where this is becoming very obvious that people are afraid to get sick. They're afraid to get a cold. They're afraid to get a flu. There's a lot of fear behind what's going on right now, that it's dangerous to get these things. And of course, in certain populations, we need to pay more attention than other people when they get, a cold or a flu. But in homeopathy, when you start to give, if your patient gets the correct remedy, and here's the thing, if somebody has, let's say, a fever because they have a strep infection, they have strep throat, their glands are swollen, they have a fever, and the fever's at 99. But the body, the strep infection, let's just say in this particular case, an example I'm giving, needs a fever of 101 to eradicate the pathogens, the strep bacteria. So your body, your immune system can't get over that hump. So this is why some people might be asking in the beginning, why the heck would you give a similar thing for a similar, condition? So when you give a similar remedy that, let's say, causes the fever, sore throat, maybe some chills, whatever that person's exuding, you allow the immune system to bring the fever up so it can get over that hump. So it needs a little encouragement in order for the immune system to actually fight the pathogen. That's the homeopathic approach. The Western approach is sore throat, penicillin, or whatever antibiotic streptomycin, whatever it is. So you don't get that increasing fever typically. And the increasing fevers literally it can be an hour to, a few hours to get you over the hump, to 24 hours. It's a short window. It's not like you're going to be having a fever for a week. It's the short period to get you over that hump. So whereas Western medicine, you don't get that heightened immune response. It's just like, fever's gone. Sore throat's getting better. And this is the issue, however, because the immune system had this opportunity to get over the hump. It had this opportunity to strengthen itself, because our immune systems are pretty crap today because we've taken so many antibiotics and vaccines and other things these things that suppress the immune system. They don't actually encourage it. So when we have too many of these things pile up over time, strep throat antibiotics, bronchitis antibiotics, etc., we weaken the immune system so it can't elicit that response. And eventually people just stop getting fevers and they stop getting colds and flus because their immune system is so suppressed. So they'll literally will stop getting acute things, sore throats, colds, flus, fevers. Like, when's the last time you got a fever above 102, 103? When's the last time adults actually got a fever of 102, 103? So a big thing with homeopathy is it helps to encourage the immune system and strengthen the immune system. So after you've taken a remedy, let's say you had the sore throat and all the symptoms you had, and you took the remedy, fever spiked for a few hours, and then you fell asleep, you had a big sweat, you woke up and you felt like, oh my God, I feel amazing. Or in like 3 days, you felt really healthy and strong and just really good. Yeah. And then when we take antibiotics for these sort of things, when it's not like a life-threatening situation, we take the antibiotics, the sore throat goes away. But then over the next month, 3 months, 6 months, we get constipated. We feel like this depression comes in, our state of health diminishes. And so this is really the difference, is that if you get the right remedy for your condition, you should have a heightened response in your body, more symptoms, but then this huge breakthrough with your health. Versus Western medicine, you take the antibiotics or the corticosteroids or whatever, symptoms go away, but really we pushed them down deeper, and we end up having the sore throat turns into constipation, or the sore throat turns into depression, or the sore throat turns into bronchitis, So
talk a little bit about that more, because I can hear like a lot of my clients who, brilliant people who are literally in the medical field or work with the medical field, talk about, we get so scared when we start to have a symptom. And I remember the last time I got sick and I did get a fever, and I started drinking tons of water. I had no energy. I slept and slept and slept, and it was gone in 36 hours. And I mean, fever, chills. I was just couldn't get warm. And then it turned into this massive headache. But I just stayed home. I hydrated. I let myself sleep. At one point I couldn't warm up, so I took a bath, but it was gone in 36 hours. And I know if I had told anyone, they're like, go to the doctor, I'm like, I'm not going to the doctor. But with that said, I think it would help people maybe hear this and take it in more. At what point do you believe it is important to get medical help if someone has a cold or a fever or flu? And people are petrified now. I know people start to get the sniffles and then they'll go get a COVID test. I'm like, okay.
Well, that's the narrative that people are being trained. So hopefully like videos and interviews like this will help people to just have a different perspective, or to see it from a different light. Because the narrative people are being told, you have a sniffle, the littlest thing, you lose your sense of taste, you go get a test, go get a COVID test. So that's a fear response, but we also can, just by getting some more awareness around our health, we can make more empowered decisions that work for us. So, one thing is that you can always get help. Like what I would suggest is, if you're just starting to get a flu, a cold, feel run down, there are, reach out to somebody. I would suggest a homeopath. Call me, call other homeopath, call somebody, and check in with somebody who has some expertise and knowledge in this situation to support you. If you're feeling uneasy, if you're unsure, until you really work with your body and can understand its symptoms, you might need some more support in the beginning. And if you get the right remedy when you have an acute condition, you could likely feel a lot better, even better than before you had the cold or flu, after you've taken the remedy. So, and one thing I caution people against is try not to Google too much, because Google has no idea about who you are. Like Google, it can talk about physical symptoms, but in homeopathy, you can tell an experienced or a classical homeopath from a non-classical homeopath. Just there's always different varying degrees of doctors and physicians of all areas out there. But it's always important, no matter if you have an acute condition or a chronic condition, to also take the mental, emotional symptoms into play, because they're as much part of the pathology as the physical symptoms, and we're likely there even before the physical symptoms showed up.
Right.
So if you have, this is a common one with COVID. You start to get, let's say, a sniffle, and then you get really anxious. You go into a panic state. The panic state that comes up for you needs to be part of the treatment protocol in order to not only remove the sniffles, but we need to remove the panic state.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to go back here to your question here is how can you tell? In the beginning stages, you might need help, someone to hold your hand, someone who knows what they're doing to help you understand what's going on in your body.
Mm-hmm.
Also, your body's super smart. In one way, we have to just let it be smart instead of trying to outthink it, outsmart our body. So if your body's giving you a symptom, it's actually preventing a deeper pathology from setting in. So your body's symptom expression is actually in place for you to prevent the pathology from going deeper. So we don't want to suppress those symptoms as much as we can. You know, as much as we can, we want to let those come out. Sorry. And we need to pay attention to the direction those symptoms are going in. Okay. So, okay, I've got a fever, you know, keeping an eye on it, resting. That's a good time to reach out for some kind of homeopathic care, especially if you're in a panic state, or get anxious or feel uneasy. But we want to try to prevent suppressing those symptoms with anti-inflammatories, you know, fever reducers. You know, we really want to try to let the body as much as it can express those symptoms, because when we let it express the symptoms, we actually give our immune system a chance to go up a level. It's kind of like going to the gym. You go to the gym, or you start a running program or a walking or hiking program, and you're like, wow, I feel better.
Yeah.
I have more energy. I feel like I'm in shape.
Yeah.
When we get acute things, it's like taking our immune system to the gym. So we don't want to suppress that. We
Right.
want to encourage it to come out as much as possible.
Right.
And
Like in the old days, it's just very common. Kids get colds.
yeah,
And we used to know that built the immune system, right? We used to know, let them play in dirt.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I kind of want to segue into a couple of things. Um,
Cool.
and I also want to say, you know, if this information that we're giving you is new and it feels like too dangerous of information right now, given the COVID situation and everything, you always do what's best for you. And what I always encourage my clients to do is to start to have a conversation with your doctor, your physician, or your nurse practitioner. And if this person listens to you, right, actually takes the time to see what's going on with you, what's going on in your life, then that's a good physician. But if somebody just walks in and says, oh, you have this, and symptoms, here's a medication, I encourage people to start questioning that. Start to question a physician of any kind that isn't actually listening to you, but is just like, here, oh, you have this symptom. I looked it up in my book or in my head in my dictionary, and you know, you have a sore throat and a little bit of a cough. That means antibiotic. And if the person isn't willing to have a conversation with you, like Heather would have, you know, like I would have, then you know, I really encourage people to find someone they can work with, that they can talk to. And I personally, even if you have insurance, I hear this a lot. Oh, but this is the only doctor covered by my insurance. And you know, even with insurance, I go out of network for my main primary care, because I'm finding people who will actually sit down and talk with me and see me as a person who doesn't want to be on a lot of medications. So I think that's the conversation that we're really opening here, is we don't need to medicate every symptom. right? Because we're just
I would highly
suppressing.
encourage.
We're just suppressing the immune system. We need to have some dirt. We need to have some colds and some light flus to build up that immune system. And I do want to get back onto the homeopathy, but the big thing I want to chat with you about is I believe we're doing more harm than good right now. And I know people have their protocols, but the hand sanitizer, the over cleaning of everything, I realize just for the sake of this video and the conversation, I realize what is going on in the world. But like, what do you recommend to people when they're just in this place of absolute fear and hand sanitizing all the time? Like I went into a place and they wanted to take my temperature. I'm like, I got my own temperature gauge. Thank you very much. And then I'm like, here's some hand sanitizer. And I'm very sensitive. So I've got like water wipes. And I'm like, I got my own. Thank you very much. Because I know these chemicals going into my skin is, I literally feel the reaction, but a lot of people aren't. But some people are like, oh yeah, I've got, my hands are like alligator skin. What do you share with people who are in this narrative where they're working and it's just part of the protocol? You sanitize, you use the hand sanitizer instead of just letting, soap and water, right?
Yeah, it's a big talk here.
It is.
Here's where I become the unpopular person in this situation. But let's just go back to the basics, for people. First of all, turn off your TV and stop watching the TV, because there's an agenda behind what they're telling you, and they also have no idea about what real health is. If you want to learn about real health from a quote unquote like professional person, if you're looking for that, go to Dr. Mercola's site. He'll tell you, this is just for people who want, a big name behind their, what to do. Go to his site, and go to his Instagram page and read what he's posting. It's just so you can see, this isn't actually the narrative that may be the most helpful and supportive to the people, but it's the one that when we turn on CNN, I even went in the car and turned on NPR yesterday, and I was floored. I was like, wow, this is the story that people are hearing. And it's unfortunate that we're only hearing one part of the story, and we're hearing the story from people who actually don't understand how the immune system actually works.
Right.
So you have to get your information from people who understand how the body actually works and who don't have an agenda or a fear-based approach. Like, oh, well, if you don't use this hand sanitizer, then you're really putting yourself at risk and other people. If you just hear that language
over and over and over.
So if you hear anything with fear attached to it, you want to question that.
Yeah.
You want to question that.
That's a great point. Yeah. Yeah.
We just really get wrapped up. Oh, they said this. And then that's the way they use their language, is to fear you. So you will do this thing. But it's not based on any real science or real the way the body actually works in nature, naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're hearing things, is there fear attached to it? Where is this coming from? Who's actually saying this? The lady on NPR is regurgitating this, but where did she get it from? Did she get it from CNN? Did she get it from a study? Who did the study? There's so many things we need to question before just blindly believing that this thing somebody said is true.
Right.
When it comes to, there's so much we can say about this, especially at this point in time, that, I'll be I know you're respectful for your audience. I'm not as respectful with my audience. So, so for you, I respect that for you. So, but we have to question is the hand sanitizer really at the root of this thing? Is wearing a mask really helpful and is that shown over the eons to prevent disease? You see, if people understood like that, most people today actually can't even get super sick from a flu, or they can't even get a high fever because their immune system's so suppressed, and that the treatments that we're giving actually cause more harm than if we did nothing in most of these acute situations. We don't understand that, and it's not what we're being told. And so then we got this war going on with people out in basically a civil war about people who are regurgitating what they hear, and people who maybe have a deeper understanding of how the body actually works. Right. And so there's this split in our society right now. Neither one is right or wrong. It's just we have different understandings of things. One's based on fear, one's based on more of how the body really works. And there's not this like harm. We haven't found this marriage place.
Right. And that's such the conversation that it's so hard because it does get heavy, and we have our beliefs, and we have our beliefs for certain reasons. But what I hope this conversation is opening up is you don't have to believe anything that we're saying right now, but what if we all opened ourselves up to looking at both sides? Just, if we hear the mainstream narrative, like what is the other narrative? What are some other options, some other things that people are thinking about what is going on? And that's exactly what we're talking about, right, with the homeopathy. It is another approach. It is not the well-known approach that most of us are raised with these days. I mean, I remember going into the refrigerator because they used to make the liquid antibiotics taste like bubble gum.
Totally. Yes.
And even when my brothers, I would go and take a swig of it because it tasted good. I had no idea, right? No idea that I was over flooding my body with antibiotics when I didn't need them, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You go to the doctor, the kid or someone is very sick, a little bit, and there's antibiotics. We are not saying if it's an emergency situation, if you are so sick and so scared, we are not saying ignore it by any means. That's not what we're saying. I believe what we're talking here is more preventative, right? When you're healthy, really start looking into these things to where the next time you get a cold or a flu or a sniffle, to be able to relax more into it and know that there's other options. Because
I think yes, go ahead.
Yeah. And, I also tell people, antibiotics absolutely will save some people's lives, but I do believe with all my heart that they are so overused. They are so overused. And I know, anyways, so let's get back to homeopathy. It's so, Heather and I talk really openly. And again, whether or not you agree with what we're saying, what I hope is that you can just be open to what we're saying as another option, because what we're seeing in this world right now, and you can see it very clearly, is you're on this side or you're on that side. And this side and that side is very confident, willing to bet their life on it. And Heather and I would say, are more in the middle of let's look at what both sides are doing and try to bring both sides together and have a conversation. And I believe that's what we're trying to do. And I guess the question I would ask folks who may be having trouble with this information, if you haven't turned it off already, is why is it so difficult to listen or open up to understand what the other side may be thinking or going through, or where are they getting their information, right? And this can be in everything, in health, in relationships, in the way we drive our car. I mean, this is really everything. If we take into consideration all sides, I believe we're going to be more open-minded. We'll get more information. It may be very confusing in that middle for a bit, but I personally like feeling like I can relate to different people and how they think about things instead of it being, I'm right, you're wrong. Because that's
Mhm.
very line in the sand, heels out, like, nope, right? These are fighting words if we go any further. And I don't think we need more fighting words. I think we need to really understand all sides and then come to our own conclusion with what feels best in our heart, in our bodies, in our minds, and what we resonate with, right?
Yeah. So, you know, I, I sense that's part of the issue is that we tend to hear things and not think for ourselves. So if
Mhm.
you're enjoying this show, you don't even have to believe me. Nicole's probably more in the middle than I am. I'm probably more over here, which is fine. It's totally fine. And I don't, it's fine wherever you are. You are. That's fine. But if you don't have to even read, you don't have to take what I say and be like, oh yeah, this is the thing. Like, look into it for yourself. Look into
Yeah.
classic homeopathy. Look into how it works. Look into how the body works from different perspectives. How the immune system responds when given a remedy, and what the classical homeopathic approach to health is. Compare that with the Western approach, and see what makes sense
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah. And just really start to open that door. Again, I don't know who's listening. I don't know what you're thinking, but if for any reason you're you this information is new, or you're like, ooh, this isn't my belief, that's okay, right?
As if it's not your belief, that's fine. We don't even have to apply it to COVID. Let's say you have cancer and you are looking for alternative therapies, and whether you've done chemo or radiation or not, and you're now you're wanting an alternative approach. It's like we can apply this to other things, because there's a million sicknesses right now. We've just kind of lost vision of that because of everything that's going on right now. There's only one sickness in the world right now.
Right.
There's thousands of things that we get sick from every day, from depression to addiction to cancer to type 2 diabetes. So we can apply homeopathy to really anything. And the same kind of thing we're always trying to achieve is boosting the level of health. And to do so, let's say we are dealing with a cancer patient. I'll give you an example of a cancer patient I've worked with. This individual, she had breast cancer, and she went through chemo and radiation, and so the actual tumor went away, but this individual, years and years and years before she had cancer, had really bad joint pain, all of these muscle twitching things, debilitating back pain. And she for years had this fear of cancer, this overwhelming fear of cancer. After the chemo and radiation, the tumor was gone, but what happened was there's the pains are still there, the overwhelming fear of cancer is still there. And so I say, okay, well, the cancer, it might be gone on the MRI, but in order to really prevent a reoccurrence, we have to address these core root issues. So remedy comes to my mind. Okay, fear of cancer, the muscle twitching, the body pains. give her a pretty high dose of the remedy. And the individual basically said in 24 hours, I had less anxiety than I've had in the past 20 years, and the body pains are starting to go away. But now new like underlying symptoms are coming up. So before these things came in, she had mono, which we're not to that yet, but she also had recurring UTIs. So now what's going on is there's some bladder pain coming in and out. To somebody in a different approach was, well, we need to like stop that bladder pain right away. To me, this person is getting symptoms they had over 20 years ago, meaning we basically removed a 20-year layer to get to this layer of the bladder infections. This is a very, very, very positive sign. So we're scared of symptoms, but the symptoms are our body's way of preventing the pathology from going deeper.
Yes.
And in homeopathy, a really good sign is that you get an initial aggravation from the remedy. So, your symptoms might intensify or something intensifies for a few hours to a few days. They leave, and then an old thing comes up. You used to have eczema, and then after you've taken the remedy, a month later, 2 months later, you have eczema. Or like this cancer patient, 3 months after the remedy, she's getting the bladder infections. And to me, this is a key sign that she's actually really, really improving. Now, if we took that to a Western medicine doctor, oh my gosh, like, wow, here we go again. Let's suppress this, antibiotics. You give the antibiotics in that situation to the bladder thing, and then the joint pain's going to come back, the body pain's going to come back, and the fear of cancer is going to come back. So, so this is an example of what I mean here about really understanding how the body reacts to certain stimuli, and when you're given a certain drug, no matter what it is, if it's natural or prescription, allopathic, etc. So when we can really detect the state at which the health of the body is at by learning the past history, seeing what happens after you give a treatment, no matter what kind of treatment, it's really, really helpful. And so most people would fear these symptoms. And so we've been trained that way. So if you feel fear coming up, connect with somebody who's not going to just immediately suppress it like you're talking about, who's going to listen to you and who's going to give an approach that is actually going to help improve your state of health and not suppress. We might need to suppress in some situations. If somebody's right in the middle of a sepsis infection and they're going to die in 2 days, and we're going to need to give that person some antibiotics. But that's an extreme situation. Most people aren't in that extreme situation today. And the media and the just way we've been taught about health and to think about our body, which is suppressed, we don't want to be sick, is actually harming our health. It's actually healthy. In order to heal, old things need to come out. And this is the whole thing behind homeopathy, is that we need these old things to come out. And because that means they're coming up, like the antibiotics push down the pathogen. We actually need to pull up the root of that thing. And to do so, as that root's coming up slowly, you're going to get different symptoms, old symptoms coming out. And that's a key that you're healing. If something that's very, very interesting is that I work with a lot of people who have cancer. Alternatively, of course, if you can't tell from this video. But one thing they say, I can't tell you how many people have said, Heather, I have no idea why I got cancer. I haven't been sick in years, even with a cold or a flu. And I said, that's why you got cancer. Because your immune system has not been able to elicit a response to improve your state of health, to bump up your immune system. Things have been suppressed. And when you get to a point in your life where it's too much suppression, that's when things like cancer,
Yeah.
neurodegenerative diseases, autoimmunity, that's when they come out.
Yeah.
And so my goal with a cancer patient is, let's get you a fever, let's get you a skin rash. You're going to be feeling a lot better, and that's a sign of a cure.
Right. And what I'm hearing from you is one way or another we need to heal. And what's also true, and I mean, don't take my word for it, just look at the box. The you see these commercials on TV where it talks like 2 minutes about the antidepressant and then 10 minutes about how it could, make things worse. Right? So what I'm hearing from you and what resonates with me is honest, and I know both ways. If we take a medication, there's usually a side effect, right? So people
Always.
know if we take an antibiotic for whatever reason, acute or not, there's going to be gut issues, that we're going to feel horrible for a few days while it works through our system. But if we go the homeopathic way or the more natural way, we're going to feel a little off for a bit, but then we're going to feel better. So you either have the healing crisis, some people call it a healing crisis, I'm sure there's a better word for it, or you have the adverse reactions. And something I experienced by working in assisted living facilities is so many of them are on so many medications, and this is not hidden information. Every medication has a side effect. And then often people are put on more medications because of the side effect from the first medication. And this can span to 10 different medications that may have been tested individually, but never tested what they'll do in a human body with 10 of them. Right? Right?
Yeah.
So Heather, I want to be cognizant of your time. I could keep you forever. This is such a great conversation, and I really hope it's been expanding for some people. And if it has upset you, look at that. Like, why is it upsetting you? Is it upsetting you because it's against a certain belief system you've had for a long time? Like, if this triggered you, if this upset you, why? Right? Why? So Heather, tell people how to get a hold of you and the different types of people that you work with. When I hear you, what I think of is I think people should work with you and with natural doctors before something acute starts to happen, right? So instead of that yearly physical, it's like start working with someone who has some natural aspects that they bring into this health thing, right? This one body, this one healthy body that we have that we can work with. Tell folks what you specialize in, who you work with, how to get a hold of you.
Thanks, Nicole. So if you resonated with this, of course, you can get in contact with me for a homeopathic consultation, even if you don't have an acute illness. So I work with a lot of people who don't have acute illnesses. Maybe they have a chronic thing, or they have some digestive issue that's been nagging them for a while. They always get an ear infection. They're fatigued. They have depression. They have anxiety. They have joint pain, etc. So this doesn't have to be an acute thing. I work with acute and chronic conditions. So if you want to get in touch with me, you can visit my site, heatharshepard.com. My first name spelled with an AR at the end. So heatharshepard.com. You can send me an email at heather.shepard@gmail.com. I work with a lot of different people. The individuals who tend to come with me struggle with cancer, type 2 diabetes, weight struggles, hormonal imbalances, brain injuries, migraine headaches, and skin issues. Those tend to be, and digestive issues. Those are the main people who tend to come into my practice. And it's important to know that I like to share with people with homeopathy. Whether you decide to work with me or somebody else who's practicing homeopathy, I'll just give a few tips here on what to look for to make sure you're getting the appropriate care for your condition. So, so with homeopathy, we can have whole discussions about this, but I just want to give some people some tips if they're going to explore homeopathy after this. So a couple of red flags to look out for is repeated doses of the remedy. You usually just want to take one dose of the remedy that is needed at this time. Okay, so unless there are some exceptions to that rule, like if somebody's on a prescription drug, they might need several small doses over the course of time until they're able to wean off of that drug if they are. That's one situation. Typically, you don't want to do repeated doses of the remedy for many reasons. So that's one red flag. If somebody prescribes, or if you go on and Google things and you try a remedy for yourself, please don't do repeated doses. In most cases, that's going to be ineffective. Okay. Another thing is combination remedies. So this is very popular today, that you can go into natural grocers, you can go into a health food store, or even some homeopaths who have different trainings will give a combination remedy, meaning there's several different remedies in one pill. That is a big red flag, because it's going to, each remedy acts so uniquely that when we combine them, they cannot act in their own unique way and can have a suppressive effect on the immune system. So use caution not to use a combination remedy. And if somebody prescribes or encourages you to, that's something to question. Another thing that I'll just dissolve here is that in homeopathy, if anybody's listening and they're familiar with it, is that everybody has a constitutional remedy. In most cases today, that is absolutely not true, because our immune systems are so suppressed that you can have a lot of different remedies that you're likely going to need over the course of years to help get you to a full your cure, whatever your cure is. So whatever symptoms you're presenting with now is what needs to be treated. And then after that layer is treated, you're going to need another remedy, and it's going to present with a different picture. And so in this way, there's no like one constitutional remedy, like you're a sulfur type, or you're an arsenicum, or you're a bryonia, or whatever. You might be that at this point in time, or whenever you see your homeopath, but the goal is that that layer clears and then another clear layer presents. So if somebody tells you you're a sulfur type, you might be in this moment, but don't grasp onto that and latch onto that you're a sulfur, and it's kind of like the zodiac. I'm an Aquarius, and you're going to stick to that.
Right. Jen already broke that for me. Forever I've been a Sagittarius, now I'm a Scorpio. Wow. Yes.
So I know that might have been more that you were bargaining for there that I shared there, but I want to add that in case people are inspired to explore homeopathy after this conversation.
Right. And definitely seek a professional. I mean, yes, Google will tell you everything you think you want to know, but it's a conversation, right? Just like this conversation that Heather and I have had today. It's gone in its own unique way based on the things that we brought together. And that's what a professional can help you with. And especially when it comes to your health, let someone who has had the experience help guide you through these things in the proper way, where she can see you in a different light. You're going to see your symptoms in one way, right? Oh, I have joint pain. And she's going to see the whole body. Oh, well, this is why.
That's exactly right. And that's the last thing I'll mention here, is that when you go, if you're encouraged to see a homeopath after this, please make sure that they take your mental, emotional symptoms into play, because those were there before your physical symptoms were there. So we cannot just treat the physical symptoms. It's going to be doing the patient a total disservice, and it's not going to pull out that root of the issue. So we need, like for the homeopath, they're going to ask you some interesting questions like, do you sleep on your right or left side? Do you have fear of snakes, fear of thunderstorms, fear of dark? Are you anxious about your health? Do you prefer to be alone, or are you anxious when you're alone? These are very important questions that help to lead towards the correct remedy that Google cannot get you. Right. And that you want to make sure your homeopath is asking these questions, because the remedies have very, very strong mental emotional ties and phobias and anxieties and depressions and these very important aspects of our health that are always tied to the physical layers. So, yes, you might have joint pain, but do you also have depression, or do you also have IBS, or do you also have an anxiety disorder? And when is that anxiety disorder triggered? Alone, with people, when you leave your house? It gets very, very complex, which you can see why homeopathy was totally let go of, because literally it takes me 90 minutes to 2 hours to do a homeopathic initial intake with someone, because there's so many questions to ask, 1,000 remedies plus to weed through to get you the right remedy. And then usually it's one dose of that remedy. And one dose of the remedy, some people can go a year without needing another remedy. That remedy will literally work on you for an entire year unless you antidote it, but it will continue to work on you, and you'll see your body go through these subtle, different changes over time.
Yeah. So I know you have to go. Do you work online? How do you get people remedies if you do work online? Give us some of that good stuff.
Thanks for bringing it back. So I work in person, I work online, I do phone consultations in the States, overseas. I do in person for people who live around Sedona. I do remedies, ship them to you. We do the session. Oh, you need this remedy. I have it. I ship it to you. I tell you how to take it. And then you keep in touch with me. We see how your body responds, how your body acts. And so that's how that works. You can contact me online, my email, Facebook, Heathar Shepard, Instagram, my handle is sunlight_RX. And the Primal Pioneer podcast, that's my podcast that is going about every other week to once a month right now. So you can find me there, and you can find me here on Nicole's podcast.
I'm going to be dragging her back as often as she'll come. This is started. I feel like we just started the conversation and now we have to go. I will link all of Heathar's stuff below. Please give this video a like if it resonated with you, subscribe to the channel. And I hope this brought you some really great information. And again, I'm just thinking about a lot of the folks that I've worked with. And if this triggers you at all, see if you can sit with that and just see, what it might be that triggered you. And if we can just expand to understand that this world is so complex, there is so much in it. And we, on our daily lives, we get to about this much. But when we expand, I believe we understand more, and that brings more compassion and more love. And that's what I think we need on the planet right now, is more compassion, more love, really more expansion, right? And to also come back to nature, come back to our bodies, come back to our natural rhythm, like what we talked about in the beginning, sunlight, of course, more natural foods, and taking the more natural approach whenever possible for our health. All right. Thanks so much for being with us. And Heather, I'm going to drag you on again. Thank you everyone for listening. Have a beautiful, beautiful day.